anarcho-capitalist. Am I correct? Okay. So we're going to debate tonight. The prompt is the state justified? No Gamble, No Future is going to be taking the stance that it is not justified, and Lego will be taking the stance that it is. We'll start with this broad topic, and then I will only interject to clarify or to add elucidating questions if the conversation starts to stall. But for the most part, we'll try to have a more free-form discussion. And if one of you would like to interject and have a moderator clarify, feel free to ask me. But for the most part, I will only come in if I feel like something needs to be pushed for the discussion to further. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right. Cool. So go ahead. Is the state justified? Let's start with Lego since you're going to be positive, and then Gamble, you'll also have your say after Lego finishes his answer to that question.
I would say the state is justified by the nature of the general consent of the populace. The fact that most people, overwhelmingly most people, prefer to have at least some state, at least it seems. I guess that's an empirical claim that we would need. I don't know if you'll challenge that, but I guess you could. But it seems that most people do prefer to have at least some degree of a state. So the consent of the populace justifies it, in my view. All right. Well, there's two things there. One is calling it coercion, and the other would be saying that it's criminal. So when you say it's criminal, let's start there. Criminal in what sense? Because I mean, by law, it is legal. Okay. So I guess we should probably, I guess, go to the coercion thing. So it seems like you're saying it's not a legal, or it's a, I forget the word you used. It's criminal because of the coercion, right? So when you say coercion, you just mean that they do use force. Okay. And would you say is there any reason other than the coercion that leads you to say that it's criminal, or are we really just talking about the coercion? Okay. So would you say that any form of coercion is necessarily criminal? Or are there forms of coercion that you would say are not criminal? And are you determining innocence based off of natural law or written law? Okay. Uh, I would say if they're not paying their taxes, then they are not innocent. Tax evasion. A little bit. I feel like yours is a little bit. You're saying that if they're innocent, but when you say you're assuming they're innocent when they are doing something that is considered wrong. But you're saying that they're just one mo I don't mean to cut you off. Your reason for considering them innocent is because you don't consider what they're doing wrong, it seems like. Would it be wrong to leave a baby in the woods? Okay, o okay, but, uh, don't you consider don't you consider what is morally wrong to be a violation of natural law and therefore illegal? So would it not be a contradiction to say that it is morally wrong but should not be illegal, even though it violates natural law? Well, that's what I'm, I guess, trying to parse out. How could something be morally wrong, a violation of natural law, yet still be legal? Because you're not talking when you say legal, you're not talking about written law. You're talking about natural law, what is moral and justified. So you can't appeal to the written law and say that, oh well, we separate legality and morality, because I think you might actually be conflating the two in a way. But I don't want to put words in your mouth. I'm just giving you my impression. But go ahead. Wait, real quick. I hate to cut you off, but you said good law there, but good implies that it's a moral law, or do you mean something else by good? Like, what do you mean by good there, if not moral? Okay. Well, wait, what do you mean by legal? Oh, go ahead. You may have. According with what law? Natural law or written law? So written law.
I'm sorry, can I interject real quick? Because I know we talked about having a moderator kind of focus things. So I just want to get a clear position from both of you. When we talk about a state being justified, what do we mean by that? Because right now it seems to me, no gamble, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying that a law in the state's like validity is justified if it is in accordance to this natural law. Whereas I think Lego, you're trying to question and parse out what he's saying there.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it means for a law to be good but morally wrong, or a law to be bad but morally right. I don't see how the law could be good but also wrong, and be bad but also right. That to me doesn't make a lot of sense. Also, I feel like we're kind of jumping back and forth here between legal law, like what is lawful or legal, like whether it's written law, because you're talking about now judges and stuff. But initially, whenever I pointed to the fact that taxation is legal in the colloquial like common sense, you said, "Well, no, that doesn't count." Well, you didn't say that, but that was kind of the impression I got because it didn't abide by natural law. But then, whenever I try to get clarification on what would be lawful, you point to how ANCAPs would have judges and such.
So maybe it would be helpful for each of us to say what we think it means to be justified. So Gamble, go ahead, since Lego just had his thing. Go ahead.
I feel like that's kind of begging the question: what do you mean by it being criminal? Then, like, you mean it's unjustified? So you're saying if it's to be justified would be to be justified is what it seems to be. So
Gamble, can I ask you a quick question just to clarify? So you are saying that to be justified, a state must be in accordance to natural law in the sense that you cannot extort people, regardless of whether the state has legalized taxation or not. You would say it's unjustified because it's not in accordance to this natural morality give it about extortion. Is that correct? Well, but hold on. So you're saying that it is just let me be very clear here because I just want to get you on the record. So you're saying that if a state is violating what you consider to be the natural law, which is that you ought not to coerce others, then they are not justified. Is that correct? Is that your stance? I mean, you're the one that brought up natural law, so I just want to, I'm using your words.
Well, I don't want to proceed from a position where it's only loosely his position. So could you just state clearly, without any appeal to criminality and such things, what would determine whether the state is justified? Like what would be? You can't do that? Tautologically? So you mean by definition almost, it's unjustified. Okay. So that's what I'm saying. What would it have to do or not do to be justified?
Yeah, I don't want to like, I don't want to dogpile on you, but I feel like you're not answering the question. Like what to be, you are being tautological. You're saying it's a criminal organization, but I'm asking you what it is to be criminal, and you're kind of circling back to like it's criminal because it's criminal.
What sort of crimes? Natural law crimes, I suppose. But is extortion a natural crime, I guess? Okay, so what if I don't agree? Okay, well, no, taxation is legal under the state's legal system. You shouldn't even you shouldn't appeal to the state's legal system for your argument because according to the state legal system, taxation is legal according to the state legal system. Is taxation extortion under the state legal system? Oh, really? The state considers does the state consider taxation to be extortion? Yes, it does because you're appealing to it. Okay, but you're appealing to the state's position, so you can't. Okay, but the state's own legal system says that taxation is not extortion, so you can't you can't appeal to that because it contradicts you. Okay, if so, you're saying that if the state says something is legal or illegal, that makes it the case. Is that what you're saying? No, that's what you're saying right now. No, that's what you're saying right now. Do you agree? Okay, then why are you appealing to it? No, no, under the state's own laws, taxation is legal. Okay, but taxation is. So if you're going to appeal to the state law, you need to either accept that it's legal or stop appealing to it because it is legal according to state law. So if you're going to appeal to state law,
Well, it's not. So no. Like the state defines what extortion is, and since taxation is legal, it's by definition not extortion because it's not illegal. So what you need to do, I think, and this is valid, is show that extortion taxation is extortion, and that extortion is wrong by some principle that is not encompassed within the state.
yeah, you can make the argument. I'm not saying that you can't argue it. Uh, my definition of extortion? Mm, I mean, I would just go by the states, to be honest. I don't have my own natural definition. Something along the lines of like forcing people to give you money. I don't know the exact state law on it. Yeah, basically, yeah. Okay. Are we using the state's definition? Because if we are, the state does not include taxation. What is the question? I'll answer it. Okay. Right. So the answer to your question, the how here is that the state decides. That's what you're appealing to. And according to the state, it is not. So whether or not you consider the
Here,
you're the one
I'm going to
you're the
give you
one
guys the
appealing to the state.
definition. I'm going to give you guys the definition of extortion because I think you may be trying to you get too much out of it. So threaten or use of force against someone or claim official right to make someone do something when one does not have the right to do it. So I don't think you can appeal to the state given that last clause when someone does not have the right to do it because the state is giving itself the right to do it.
It's not extortion. No, it's not extortion. No. It's right to force people to give you money, but it would not be extortion according to the state. You can make the argument that by natural law or some other standard that it is extortion, but you cannot appeal to the state when the state directly contradicts you on this. You can make the argument, but you can't appeal to the state here because they disagree with you. By what standard? Oh my God, no, dude. The state's definition says that it has to be a force that a force that you don't have the right to apply, basically. But the state does have the right to apply that force. So therefore, okay, but that's not what you're appealing to right now. You're appealing to the state's definition. So are we
Okay.
moving?
No. Sorry. Can I stop you real quick? So I want to be like, to me, it's getting a little out of hand because you are not answering the question. Like he's asking you, do you think it's a legal right or do you think it's a natural right? And you keep appealing to natural rights, but then going back to the legal right and you keep conflating them. So do you think that extortion is violating a natural right in some sense? I think is the question. Can you answer that yes or no?
I do feel like your argument would be stronger by arguing that rather than trying to show a contradiction or inconsistency in law. Because, I mean, tautologically, the state is going to decide whether it's legal. So you can't appeal, you can't say it's illegal according to the state when the state does say it's legal. I mean, I don't think we can get past that. So yes, you can. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Yes, it can. Yes, it can do that. It can do that. So, okay. So did whenever you look at Nazi Germany, did they abide by these principles or did their state violate these principles? Because you're saying that they could not violate these principles. So you're saying a state could not violate these principles that you're appealing to now. You're saying the state cannot violate those principles, but they natural law, I suppose. You seem to be trying to posit that a state cannot do anything that would not conform to natural law, but they do things that contradict natural or what you would consider natural law. So it doesn't make sense right. But no, you're saying okay. States can make laws that treat one group different than another, treat the same action different depending on which group is doing it. If you're appealing to state laws, wait, we're not talking about whether it's justified. We're talking about whether it's legal by state law. According to state law, all sorts of things can be legal. Okay, then you should stop appealing to state law then, because it contradicts you. It doesn't matter. You can't appeal to something that contradicts you, dude. That just makes you wrong. No, no. No, no. You can call them hypocrites, but you can't say that something the state says is legal is illegal according to the state. You can say it's illegal or a violation of natural law. You can't say it's a violation of state law when the state decides what is legal or illegal according to state law. You're right. We should be talking about natural law.
Okay, so I agree. I agree with Gamble what you just said. I think we are getting bogged down on this. I do want just on the record. So you would say that by its own rights, the state does have the authority to tax people, but by natural law, you would say they do not. Is that correct? Okay, so I think then you do need to explain this because I think you're contradicting yourself from my perspective. Thank you. Well, when the state says that it has the right to tax people, and it says extortion is a forcing someone to do someone who does not have that right, and it's up to you if you're going to claim that the state is self-contradictory to show that the state does not have the right by its own laws, which I don't think that you get. So now you're appealing to natural law. So I mean, I don't. No, you're not doing that. So you asked me to moderate this, and to me, you're being in very bad faith because you keep contradicting yourself, and then yet you're not willing to. But yes, you have because the state gives themselves they say by the tax code that taxation is not extortion, and they say that extortion is when you're forced to do something by someone who does not have the right. So if the state
Nietzsche, wait, real quick, if I could just kind of like maybe moderate the moderation a little bit. I'm not saying that you're necessarily like moderating poorly on this. I think that actually what's going on is that no Gamble. You can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think that it sounds like you're trying to say that there is a common sense definition of extortion, which the state is basically violating on two different levels. So natural law, yeah, sure, it's wrong according to natural law, but according to what we commonly associate extortion with, you're saying that you think that is extortion, correct? Like that should, whatever the state currently uses to identify extortion, you think that it identifying taxes as not extortion is arbitrary, right?
So you don't think that the state is contradicting itself then? You think it's contradicting common sense and natural law, but not itself. Okay, so then you don't agree with what he just said. You are
no, Nietzsche. Listen, wait. This needs to be about Lego and Gamble, real quick. But on this point, right. I think that what he's saying really is consistent. Anyways, go ahead, Lego.
Stop talking.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Lego. I mean, I don't. To me, it's going in circles because this guy is not being honest. But go ahead.
All right. I don't want to feel like I'm piling on now, but I am the participant. So I just want to say, and I'll let you respond. I'll just make it short. You say that the state is contradicting itself because by its definition, what it is doing is extortion. But when Nietzsche gives you the definition of extortion, you reject it as an invalid definition, as a tortured definition. He gives you the state's definition, you reject it. Okay, but you said that.
No, I just read state law off the website. So the U.S. code on. Okay, well, I'm just talking about a state. So, I mean, they're gonna differ. So, okay, maybe your state differs, but we're talking about a state. So, we're talking about a hypothetical state that has this law.
Okay, so what definition? Wait. What definition are you talking about then? Okay, where are you? What definition is it that contradicts state law? You said the state's law on extortion uh, basically makes what that you're saying the state's law on extortion makes that taxation extortion. So read me the state law and tell me what state it's coming from. Because you rejected the United States, the greatest of all states. I mean, so no, no, it is consequential because you're appealing to the state's law and you're rejecting state law. So I need to know what state law it is you're appealing to. It's very consequential when you keep appealing to it, unless you would like to stop appealing to it and start making your argument from the position of natural law, which would be far more fruitful and I agree, far more consequential. You are. Uh, I don't know what to tell you here because you just rejected the law when read to you as tortured and invalid and inconsequential. But now it was not his, it's United States law. United States.
It was the federal law on extortion.
No, that's not what the definition was. You're strawmanning it. No, because well, yeah, that would be a better one because you're misrepresenting the state law. Yeah, I mean, you're you think that what you just said is the same thing he said? Okay, are you going to accept it when he reads it, or are you going to reject it if it disagrees with you? Okay, then there's no need to. Okay, no, there's no need to because you're going to reject it. Yes, you are.
Threaten or force against someone or claim official right to make someone to do something when one does not have the right to do it.
Okay, so why are you asking for it, dude? Stop appealing to written law that you're going. No, dude, you think you're representing it fairly, but you reject it because dude, this is so absurd. Stop appealing to state law if you're going to reject it when it's actually presented to you. You are.
Well,
I
would you
agree.
like to accept that the state is not contradicting itself and move on to the natural rights argument?
You don't even have to accept that. Let's just stop. It's okay. It's not, but it's inconsequential. Okay, please do then. Stop appealing to state law. You're- okay, fine. I will. Okay, you know what? You're right. I should not have told you how to argue. I agree. I agree. You're right.
I disagree, but I will move on for the sake of the argument. So we'll say that let's just go into the natural law part and ignore the state part. I will not say that you're wrong about that. We'll table it. Let's just talk about the natural law because I feel like it's more interesting.
Well, he doesn't have to talk about that. Talk about what you wanted to. Talk about what you consider consequential. Then no gamble. Because, well, I said at the beginning because it's has the general consent of the governed. I consider that enough to make it justified. No. To a degree, yes. No, because that's not the definition of extortion. That depends on if you have the right to do so. It depends on if you have the right to do so. That depends on if you have the right to do so. Are you assuming that you don't? Because if you don't, then it would be. Okay. If you don't have the right to do so, it would be extortion. If you do have the right to do so, it would not be extortion. So in this hypothetical, do you have the right to do that or not? Are we going back to state law here? Do you not consider state law inconsequential? Is that not what you've been saying for the last 40 minutes? Okay, so why do you keep appealing to it? The state has the right to tax because they have the general consent of the governed to create law, and they have given themselves the right to tax. Well, innocent here is doing a lot of heavy lifting for you. I don't consider you innocent if you're committing tax evasion. It extorts by what definition? And where does this definition, what authority does this definition have over state law? You're appealing to a definition other than the one I'm using, and I assume that you feel that it has more authority, therefore making the state unjustified. So I'm just trying to figure out where the authority of this natural law colloquial concept of extortion, like why does it matter if that's the common use of extortion? Why is that more valid than, or more important, or more consequential than the state law? I don't agree. I agree with equality before the law. I don't agree that equality before the law means that if one person can do something, everyone can do it. No. I fuck my wife. I don't think that means you get to. Well, legally by written law or by natural law? Either. So by natural law, you can fuck someone else's wife. Okay. What is the natural law on? Let's see. I don't know a lot about natural law here. What's the natural law on infidelity? Is there any natural law against that? No, no. I'm asking you as a very specific question. Is infidelity a violation of natural law? It's a yes or no question. It's a yes or no question. Okay, go ahead then. Okay. I don't agree with that. I mean, no. Yeah, I guess so. Why should I care that that's what you consider to be the more authoritative law here, the law that determines whether something is justified? Why should I accept that? Okay, well, do you think I
Okay,
should have that view?
hold on. Can I interject? Because I think it is a bit unfair to keep asking Gamble to defend all of his points. So why don't you give us your view and then we can kind of get into the weeds.
My view on natural law or what?
What you think justifies the state? I think you touched on it, but why don't you give us a formal answer and then we can discuss the merits of each?
The overwhelming general consent of the governed to have a government. I mean, the vast majority of people do want to have a state. In my view, that justifies the presence of a state. Uh, as far as the presence of a state, yeah. Yeah, because that would itself be a violation of morality. So I would object to it, but I don't consider the presence of a state to be a violation of morality or a moral wrong. So therefore, it's okay. That would be a that would be a moral wrong. I don't consider this the presence of a state to be a moral wrong. So if the majority want it, why is beating someone up a moral wrong? I don't agree with you. Uh, I didn't say that. I didn't say that a majority can revoke your rights, or that because a majority says something, it is therefore right. I said that if the majority wants to do something that is not a moral wrong, then there's what is the argument? You can't present something that is itself wrong and say that okay, well, if the majority does it, it's okay. Let's see, threatening to beat you up. Well, no, because you're violating the law. You're doing something wrong. That's why they're beating you up in that case. Say that again. No, because there's an argument for why killing you would be morally wrong, therefore making the law wrong. You would need to make the argument. Wait. You would need to. No. That's on you to make that argument. Okay, you need to make the argument that morally it would be wrong to tax you then, because okay, the majority. I don't think it does. The, the majority. No. Let me. The majority is a necessary condition, but it is not sufficient to make something okay. It also needs to be not morally wrong. If what the majority wants to do is morally wrong, then it's wrong by tautologically it's wrong. It doesn't matter if the majority wants to do it because it's wrong. So okay, you need to make that case then. Why? No, you need to make it. It's not extortion in this case. We've already covered that. Okay, you need to make the argument for why it is. You no, that's not the argument I'm making. No, that's not the argument I'm making. You need to make the case. No, it's not. If you want, okay, then fine, make that argument then. Make the argument for why that's the ramifications of my position. Nope, that's not my position.
So Lego, hold on. I want to just, I think there's a little bit of confusion here, and I'm not saying you're wrong, but Lego said it was a necessary but not a sufficient condition, right? Majority rule. So maybe what would you say are the necessary and sufficient conditions, Lego,
For something in regards to what?
in regards to what justifies a law?
Well, I would say if it's not so much what justifies a law, it's what makes a law unjust. If a law is not supported by the majority, then it is unjust. If a law is morally wrong, it is unjust. So it would need to be both majority support and not morally wrong in order for it to be just. It can't be if you can make a coherent argument for it being morally wrong, then it's morally wrong. I mean, what do you mean? If it violates morality. Do you believe in subjective morality, or I'm not sure what you mean? I just mean morality. Okay. They would need to make a really good argument for why walking around in a bikini is wrong. If they could do that, then maybe to all of us, to the majority. No, no. I consider you're asking who they would need to make this argument to. They would need to convince people that it is. I believe there is, like you said, an objective morality here. So we can be good faith to each other and say, okay, killing people is wrong. Well, depending on the conditions, at least. So I don't even consider murder to always be wrong necessarily. I guess, but it's a whole separate conversation. So we agree that something like making a law that like a racist law, like that's just morally wrong. Like now, obviously, it's not morally wrong just because we say it is. It's morally wrong for a huge plethora of like logic and reasons that I probably couldn't even make those arguments myself at this moment. But I think there is an objective reality there of it being wrong. So even if the law and the majority say that it's okay to hang black people, it would still be wrong and it would still be unjustified. The law itself would be unjustified because what they're exactly. Exactly. That's my position. So when you appeal to, well, I don't think what you're describing is extortion. Uh, that depends on why you're doing it, I guess. I mean, it's no, there's context needed here. Let's say, if you had, do you own, well, it doesn't matter if you own any, but let's say you did own some property and someone's been living in that property for a while, and then they decided they were going to leave. They just burned the house down. You know what? They just said, screw it. I'm just going to burn the house down. Would it be okay for you to use violence to try to recoup some of that cost? What kind of crime? A legal crime or a natural crime? What kind of law? Natural law or legal law, like written law? You need to specify these things because you kind of jump back and forth. Innocent is something you're introducing now. Innocent wasn't involved 30 seconds ago when you presented extortion. So now we're going back to innocence. I don't consider you innocent if you're committing tax evasion. So yeah, it's okay to take your money. I don't consider this aggression principle to be particularly important. On principle, I accept it, but I think that it would be applied very selectively and very subjectively. So I reject it because it's very easy to kind of twist this concept to allow what you want to happen while prohibiting the things you don't.
Okay, guys. Let's take like a 5 minute break. A bunch of people want to like ask questions. I want it to be very organized though. So, and both of you have made really good points, and thank you, Gamble. I think you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to dogpile on you earlier. I just was not finding your line of argument so much fair, but I did think that I didn't have an issue with your content, so I don't want you to think that I was trying to overrule you in any sense. Like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I did have. I just don't. I don't want you to think that I was like taking issue with your content. It was more like the reasoning that you were using. Yeah.
And I like you too, actually. Again, I'm. This is how I debate, but don't take it as if I'm angry with you or something.
Okay. So
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
we're gonna take a short break. Lego wants to get a beer, and then I'm gonna open up to free form discussion so people can ask questions. It's gonna be one at a time though. So I want it to be like we're recording this, so I want everyone to know that you're gonna ask orderly questions to one of the two participants, and we're going to have a back and forth. But I don't want it to become a free for all of people defending their position. So, yeah. Does anyone want to go first while Lego's getting his beer and we're setting up? Go ahead, unmute. Novak, I know you had some things to say. Would you like to ask the participant the first question when they get back?
You just unmute. I mean, you might have touched to talk. Oh, you there? Novak? You there? Hey, how you doing? Good. So, who's your question again before?
Okay, my question, Mr. Philosopher, my question here is like, what's his name? Lego. The first question
There you go.
was,
Okay, he's not here right now, so just keep it in your head. I just want to see who you're. We're gonna have you go first, so formulate it in your head, and then I'll let you go first. Okay?
okay,
Sound good?
yes, okay. But can I ask like taxation like we see right now? No gamble.
You have a question for Gamble too?
Yeah.
Okay, you can ask both. Yeah. And then
No,
all right, if you want to post your question too in the chat, I can read it for you. Since it seems like you're.
Yeah, can you hear me now? I'm better voice now?
I hear it better. Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, no gamble. Why do you keep pivoting? Like, when it asks you for a definition, what definition you're using, you get you seem to get confused about when they ask you, like whose depth are you appealing to? Why don't you just like answer that you're just using the common definition of the word extortion and it's that you're more appealing to dictionary rather than to anyone specific? Yeah, but I mean, that's not what you said, though. At one point in time, you said straight up you reject that definition. You used the dictionary definition. He did. You both did. You used the same definition. Okay. The thing is, like, you have to understand, like, that's not the definition of extortion. I'm pretty sure if you Google the definition of the word extortion, that's not what it's gonna say. You need to have whether or not it depends on that you have the right to do it. Because I can threaten someone with violent recourse if they owe me that money. I literally can't do it.
Novak, that was my definition, so I think we are in agreement.
Yeah. But okay. Yeah. I was just saying that like the definition extortion, you guys are using the same definition. You should have said that like where's that right coming from? Instead of going, well, I'm gonna reject the definition that they can't give themselves the rights.
Okay, Gamble. We're gonna go to Lego's question next. So Novak, go ahead and ask Lego. Thank you.
Lego. So you said that like one of the prerequisites is that everyone needs to agree on that thing, like the general will, and then that gives the state the right?
No,
So the general needs to agree on it, and then like you guys debate about the morality of whatever it's doing, right?
well, that's necessary for it to be justified, but that's not enough.
Necessary for it to be justified, but that's not enough.
It's not
Okay.
sufficient. It's necessary, but not sufficient.
What's the rest of the sufficiency?
I'm sorry, say that again.
What's the rest of it? What will make it sufficient?
It would have to. It could not be morally wrong.
What does that mean?
If there is, well, keep having to kind of go into this. If you believe that there are things that, like, there's truth in the fact that something is morally right or morally wrong, like that's why I went to the racism example, because we can agree that hanging all black people, excuse me, hanging all black people would be wrong. Like, we don't really need to debate that. So even if the majority says it's okay, well, that doesn't really matter because it's wrong.
Okay, so that's objective ethics then.
Well, I don't think it's subjective, but
No, I said objective.
mm-hmm.
So you believe in objective, okay then. So here's my question though. So there's never a scenario where that can be the case. Never a scenario where someone said like if any black person on this planet is caught, he will be hanged.
Well, that's a different thing. So when you say that's never the case you're presenting is different from what I said. So the case here is, well, no, it'd be okay.
U.S. law.
I think execution could be
Sorry,
justified.
Novak. If I could elucidate a little bit, he said that the universal proposition is false, not
The
the,
universal.
you're making an existential claim when you say any, like there is a black person that could be hanged. He's saying it's not the case that all black people should be hanged.
Oh no! Oh my bad. My mistake. What I said. I said like you said. Like we all agree that it'd be wrong if you said like hang all black people over a given era, right? That would be wrong, right?
Yes.
That would always be wrong.
Yes.
So like, what if I don't know, it's my house and like a big house and I put it on the law. Any black person on this land, if they come over here, I'm gonna shoot him, hang him, or something. Would it still not be morally justified?
You're going from any to all, or from all to any again.
What do you mean? Oh no, sorry. You mean like? Oh, sorry. Give me a sec. So we're only talking like in a vacuum, like as a country, right? That's what you mean, like just as a country, right?
No, I mean like if a country did it, if anyone did it, if you make a rule that just says like it's you know what the majority says we can do it, so therefore it's okay to do this awful, terrible thing. It's wrong. I mean, it's wrong because there's no justification for doing that. I mean, there's no way you can morally justify that. I mean, that's why I go to it as an example. Honestly, though, it's probably best that we don't focus too much on this. This is recorded. And I don't want this to seem like a race debate.
Well, I was going for the race debate because it was going to tie it back into it. Because I would say like I don't particularly care. I think it would be morally. It's only to morally justify like everything per se. If someone is particularly racist and they say they just don't want any black person on their lawn and anyone caught on their lawn, they would like shoot at them. Or like this tribe or a given area. That's what you would say. I would say I don't care. It's their property. They get to enforce those rights. And that comes back down to like what you were saying about the state, right? You said it's based upon like whether or not it's justified, and we can all agree whether or not that moral justification stands for what they're doing. So I would say de facto, there are things that we all automatically have a stance on, right? Like he was saying, extortion, for example. By definition, extortion can't be correct. You were saying taxation is not exploitation because whatever reason. I'm saying it de facto is extortation because taxation by death is a compulsory payment enforced by a state. It de facto by definition falls on definition of extortion if we're using the same definition. The authority for that definition comes from what's the general, I guess you call it, the English language. Presuming the word means what it means, then de facto taxation will be extortion. If you follow my argument.
I follow it, but I don't consider it extortion.
Go on.
The mere fact that colloquially it's used that way doesn't make it so.
What does that mean?
Just because people use the word that way commonly to refer to things, and maybe if you asked a bunch of people, that's the loose definition they would give you without any heavy consideration. Just because that's the answer they would give doesn't give it authority.
I'm sorry, you misunderstood what I said. That's the definition of the word. I mean, like the state, if you know the example, the state itself uses that definition. It says like, what author doesn't have the right, and like I said, I gave the example, like the person owes me money, I can take them by force if I have to. The thing is, what authority does a state have its power from? If the situation is like you say, it comes from a general will.
Novak, I really appreciate your line of questioning. I think it's totally legitimate, but I want to give Pastor a chance to ask his question because I know he has to go soon.
Yeah,
Is that okay?
Yeah, sorry, I even stopped talking.
No, you're good.
Good questions.
You're good.
Good questions.
I think you had good questions, yeah. Pastor, go ahead and ask your question because I know you have to go soon.
Appreciate it. Lego, I just want to let you know, I just want to add a comment that Gumbo, that would also help Gumbo on his point. Lego and Gumbo are both speaking from different law frameworks of law. What does that mean? Lego is using just positivism. Just positivism is the notion that law is disassociated from morality. So what the state the state doesn't necessarily is a moral thing or an immoral thing. While Gumbel is coming from the tradition that the law must always equal to morality, and that means that the law must always apply to all humans at all times in all places. This is why every single time Lego was like, "Do you think taxation is extortion?" And then Gumbel said, "Oh yeah, the state says this extortion is a crime, so the state does a crime." And then Lego was like, "Oh no, you're going back to the definition of the state." So it's not that Gumbel was using the definition of the state and then rejecting the definition of the state. Gumbel has a mindset on his own head, because I have the same head that he does, that all laws should apply to all individuals, regardless of who they are. So when the state says that no man can steal, this applies to all humans in all places of the world from Gumbel's perspective. While from Lego's perspective, that only applies to the country, to the territory of the country. So that's why Gumbel always went back to morality when he was speaking about the legality of taxation, because under libertarianism, legality and morality, they are intrinsically connected to one another. If something is lawful, it's because it's moral, and if something's moral, it's because it's lawful. There's no distinction between both. So when you say that, I didn't pay taxes, and then Lego said, "Oh, I see you as a criminal," then Lego, the burden of the proof relies on Lego when he says that Gumbel owes money to someone else. So understanding this distinction would be very helpful for you both, especially for Lego to see where the understanding from Gumbel comes from, if that makes
Yep.
sense.
It does make sense, but I would say that you're misunderstanding his position because he considers some laws to be good laws and some laws to be bad laws, and that the morality is separate. He actually specifically said multiple times that he separates the morality and the legality. So I understand what you're saying, but I think you've misunderstood his position.
Well, we also maybe maybe he's speaking of ethics. So
Pastor,
when he says,
I think that you're making a very consistent point, and I think your point is valid, right? But I think we gave Gamble the opportunity to argue that position, and he rejected it several times. So
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
Gamble can speak for himself, but from my point of view, he was arguing that the state was inconsistent on its own terms as well.
Yeah, that's the position from the principle of universal morality. I'm sorry, universal law. So
Well, no, because the state is arguing that it's justified by other means than its own assertion, right? So like if the state says that extortion is a act of force that is not someone who has the right to do it, well, the state thinks it has the right and it was given the right by the general public, then I don't see how that's inconsistent within the framework of the state. Now, I do think that you have a totally valid point to say from natural law, or if there is some other kind of morality outside of the state, that it would be contradictory. But I don't think it's fair to say that the state is contradicting itself, because I think the state is being perfectly consistent in saying that it was given, like, this is basic like Hobbes, right? The state was given power by the people. They gave up their rights to the sovereign, and the sovereign is now saying that it is not extortion for it to tax people, right? So I don't think that's inconsistent in any way. In fact, I think it has a long history of justification within that framework. Now, if we want to go outside that framework,
Yeah, and I know Novak wants to jump in real quick if you want to. Sorry.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate the opportunity.
Okay.
Bye.
Sorry. You just brought up Hobbes and you said something interesting. You said that the general was given up onto the dictators and so on. Sorry, the rulers or whatever.
The sovereign. So the principle is that by general consensus, the people have these rights and they forfeited them to the sovereign. So like you know how the I'm not sure what country you're from. I don't want to make any assumptions, but in the U.S., for example, the executive branch is able to delegate power to ministers, right? And I think that's how most countries work. So by this theory, the populace delegated their authority to the sovereign, which would be the king in Hobbes' terms. But in our case, it could be any government.
Okay. All right, so good. I'm gonna follow along. I'm assuming you're using the Hobbesian arguments, which is to say that you're a legal positivist. But that was his argument. His argument is that once whatever rights was given up from the general will to the sovereign, whatever he does is their action, and a direct quote from him is, "The people have no right to rebel. They elected him. Whatever he does is their choice." So I think that would be like, so another problem with that here is that like even this concept of a general will, which is given up, it's an abstraction. It doesn't really make sense. What you just argued is that like if 50 people vote to take the rights of one person, then they have the right to do that.
Well, the general
That
will
is that is the general will.
So that's a whole different like framework. But yeah, that's Lego's doing the general will thing. I was just doing the Hobbesian argument.
They're pretty much the same. The general will is Hobbes' arguments. The social contract theory. They're the same thing.
Yeah, but they're different social contracts, right? Because Rousseau's is more of an emergent. It's more of an emergent property, right? There's a general will that is emergent from individuals, whereas Hobbes is an individualist for the most part.
The difference is pretty semantic to me.
Well, I would say they're not the same, but I mean this is a whole other discussion. But yeah. So, but I mean, I kind of even forgot my point. So, but
I can restate mine. There's no such thing as general will. That was the summary.
That's fine.
There's no such thing as general will.
Hobbes never argues for a general will, and I also think that all I'm saying is that there is a consistent validation of the state. I'm not saying that it's necessarily sound, but I do think there's a consistent one where like all the premises could be true together, but they aren't necessarily true together.
Okay.
Sure, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have explanatory power, right? So like generally if we have a let's say thought experiment or like kind of like theoretical explanation such as that, all that you need to show is that were the conditions that were not to come about were to be false, that the alternate thing that you're proposing would come about in some possible universe, right? And that would show that it would have at least some explanatory power because it would capture at least part of what makes the state, even if it doesn't capture everything about the state. So we would say that like, okay, let's say that like in this universe that the state was brought about not through class conflict, but through like negotiation through individuals. Well, that doesn't mean that class conflict is wrong. All that means is that we're the case that like the prevailing narrative of what happened, all the like different conditions that make the things that happen were not to obtain, that class conflict would be the reason that it obtained, right? And same with natural well, I'm not talking about that. That's just an example. I'm not going to hold on. I'm not going to defend class conflict. I'm giving you an example. Another one would be state of nature theory, right?
Another one could be the myth of primitive accumulation. Another could be the social contract, right? Like these are all just hypotheticals. I'm not trying to defend any given one. I'm just trying to give you an example. It doesn't. Well, no, we don't know what actually. Listen, we don't know what actually happened. I think it's probably more complex than any given theory that you're going to give me. All I'm saying is that for a theory to be useful doesn't mean that it has to be factually true. It just has to be able to obtain, given that enough alternatives are like enough conditions are not obtaining, right? So like it just has to be a possible explanation for it to have some kind of explanatory power. That's what we use it for. We're trying to abstract some kind of condition out of the totality of conditions. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
So Lego, that's it's social contract theory is what Lego's device comes from. Justification for this, what the state can say, I'm not, taxation is not theft.
Kinda, yeah.
Well, I mean, can I like say more, or it's like I'm not allowed to debate this?
You're allowed to debate this all you want. Sorry.
All right, sweet. Okay, sweet. I'm coming in. All right, so social contract theory. For starters, we're never in a state of nature. That Hobbesian state of nature, Rousseau or Locke, it never existed. If for any reason at all people wanted to outsource their self-defense to someone else, they could outsource it the way you outsource a business. You do not need to be a master. The mere fact that there's a master lording over and exerting property rights, because I mean, that's a capitalist inside of your bio. So I'm assuming you believe in a degree of like sovereignty. Probably as far as like what ANCAT will go. But in an ANCAT world, everything that you do is an act of property. Like if say someone taxes you, what they just said is you are their property. I can take this much of your income. That's what taxation is, and that's why I would say it's theft. But going on to what I was saying, in a state of nature, people would just form groups. People just outsource their stuff to voluntary transaction. The state, by definition, is not what the word voluntary. It can't be voluntary because when someone taxes you, like I said, they claim you as their property. Taxation, the definition as on Google, is a compulsory payment given to a state. What is a state? A state is that body that seizes the legitimate use of force over a given area. That's the Max Weber definition. I don't know if you know him, but he's one of the founders of sociology. In contemporary English, the way we use it, the word actually means that body that sees the government that seizes the monopoly of law and arbitration over a given area. In any case, these aren't voluntary. This is not a voluntary binding notion. As for the very idea of there being some way that we could all come together and give up a general will to form a social contract that justifies it, nope. If everyone says one thing is right and that one person disagrees, that one person may or may not be right. The fact that everyone agrees on it has absolutely no bearing whatsoever. It's completely, I wouldn't even consider it a factor. It's just a matter of whether or not an individual would have the right to act on an occasion. If the individual doesn't have the right to act on that occasion, then the group doesn't have the right either. That's my argument.
I would reject that. Well, and maybe I might have misheard, but I think you were kind of making a similar point to him as far as law being like an offshoot of property and whatnot. I don't buy into any of that. Yeah, I'm not going to argue that something is or isn't legal based off of property, because the foundation you're building this off of, I find to be very unusual. I guess is the word for it. Why should I consider law to be something that sprouts from property rights?
I can respond. Wait, I can respond to that.
Yeah.
You don't talk. I can respond. Okay, why should I? Okay.
Can I let Gamble, because this is his debate, so can I maybe let him respond first and then you can jump in, Novak? Okay, that's fair. Okay.
Well, if they don't believe in the right of property, right? What is property to you?
To me, So
I
just
presume we're using the same definition. So yeah, you refer to the Google, right? Yeah, you're not gonna go full socialism and be like the definition of the dictionaries don't matter, right?
trust me, I'm not a socialist, so no, I'm not going to do that. My
No, I
concept of property would be things that I own and control.
Okay. You answered the question. The stuff I own and I control, that's why I'm allowed to make laws over it. Anything that makes laws or otherwise over me is claiming me as property.
No, I don't. That's the part I'm rejecting.
That's the definition you just gave.
No.
Me? What? No. I just said that everything that you make, anything that you can put a law or a rule, whatever over, you're claiming that thing as property. You have the right because you own that thing. That's what you're doing. So all laws are a claim of property. Follow? You know you're property of whomever claimed that law over you. In what sense? Like don't murder. That's a negative law. That's called natural law. I wouldn't reject that. No. Legal law. Well, I mean, by definition, a natural law is a negative right. We just use natural law because saying something humans can't cope with absences that well. So I say you don't have a right to like say I don't know life. You don't have a right to life. You have a right to not be coerced. It's a non-option. I'm not asking you to do things. I'm asking you to not do things. You have no positive rights whatsoever. We'll go on legal. You're supposed to be a legal response now. I said all laws are property, and I said that's because all laws are property claims because what you own is property. If someone says you can't do X, they're claiming you as their property. Follow?
I'm sorry. What was the question?
The question was about property. I said law emerges from property. I said that because property is what you own and control. If property is what you own and control, then all laws are a claim of property. So someone says, I don't know, you're not all.
Well, real quick, you're kind of doing like a logic formulation there, and I don't see how that follows. Like me owning and controlling something, therefore that's where laws come from. I don't see how.
Okay, let me rephrase that. You say that property is what again?
So the things that are owned and controlled.
Correct. I own and control something. That means I set the laws up and the governance of how that thing is
I
done.
didn't say anything about law.
No, but you say what property is. I'm explaining to you now what property, how law emerges from property.
But don't
in the
explain.
definition.
Well, real quick, don't explain to me what you consider property to be.
No. I'm using your definition.
You're not. You're adding things to it, and I want you to justify and make an argument for why you're adding those things.
Okay, I apologize. What did I add?
It's okay. It's just that you are adding this. You're adding stuff undeniably, like you're interpreting what I'm saying to include things like law, and I want you to.
Okay.
That's the part we
My
disagree
bad.
on. So I want you.
Yeah, but my bad. You said I added law to it, but the definition you just gave me was property is stuff like control and own, right?
Yes.
How would I exert control and ownership?
Force, probably.
Okay, I disagree, but going off of that, so my claim of property is the right of legitimate use of force then.
Say that again, please.
So my claim of property is my right of a legitimate use of force then.
No, the claim doesn't make use of force legitimate.
Okay. No. What I own I get to govern by force, right?
If you objectively own it, yes.
Then
Okay, real quick. The debate's getting a little too long for the recording. I don't want to upload like a 2.5 hour debate necessarily.
Well-
So let's make your final point and I'll turn off the recording and then we can do a free form, like just friendly discussion, okay?
okay. All right. Well, I'm just gonna state it in the simplest sentence.
Well, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Was no gamble done? I don't know.
Yeah. So
Okay.
Novak, we'll bring you back in. Gamble, do you want to make a final point before we end the recording?
Yeah, you can say whatever you want.
Okay.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
And thank you. Yeah, I'm glad you came and you participated, and I thought it was pretty fun.
Thank you.
All right, let's turn off Craig and then we can continue whatever friendly discussions that we want. And thank you, Novak, for jumping in and trying to help defend the position.
Yeah,
Right.
you can keep talking, Novak. You don't have to
All
stop.
right. All right, sweet. All right. So yes,